Hello and welcome back to another fabulous episode of The Walk and Talk. I hope you're all well. I hope December is being super kind to you. I hope the office Christmas parties are well underway and at least some of your dogs have doggy advent calendars that are also well underway. Although absolutely no shade to you if not, because for full transparency, I have never in my life bought a doggy advent calendar. Dogs don't know what Christmas is, do they? Why would they need any help counting down to it or whatsoever? Nobody knows. It's just another way for pet brands to make money, isn't it? Anyway, I'm certainly not here to bash pet brands. Pet brands, all of you, if you are listening and you would like to sponsor this podcast, you are, of course, more than welcome. You know where I am. Right, let's move on swiftly, shall we? So today I have once again been divinely guided to the topic of this week's podcast episode because it's been a theme that has cropped up a lot on my Instagram comments over the past month or so. Apologies, right? I just need to interrupt this to say Albie he's sitting right beside my chair and he is chewing a very crunchy chew. So if you can hear that, my apologies. It's very cold and I'm really cozied up at my desk and I can't be bothered to get up and kick him out. So hopefully you either can't hear it or it's not too irritating, or you can hear it and you just love hearing a dog enjoy himself and live his best life. Anyway, right. So the theme of this week's podcast episode is something that's cropped up a lot in my Instagram comments over the past month or so, like I said, right? And as I'm sure you already know, I share a lot of little like demo tutorial training games and exercises and things over on Instagram and TikTok. And if you don't know, get to know because you're missing out on a whole load of free dog training ideas over there. I'm at Listen Dog Training. If you're not in the gang already, go and hit follow. Won't hold it against you for being late to the party. But basically, I have noticed that something that regularly crops up in the comments on these types of videos where I'm showing you like step by step an actual exercise or a little training game or whatever it is a comment along the lines of, well, many comments along the lines of, can I do this game with more than one dog? Or how can I do this game with more than one dog? Or I can't do this game because I've got 3 dogs and it would be too crazy. Can more than one dog play this game at the same time? I can't separate my dogs. How can I teach them this? All of this, all of this. And so I, in my wisdom, have concluded that actually there's a fair few of you out there who, like me, were not content with the carnage of owning just one dog. Oh no. And you actually are all cohabiting with multiples of these lovely little chaos gremlins, and you want some advice and you want some tips on how to optimize that lifestyle so that you can still live your very best life and have amazing walks and do all the training you want to do whilst owning more than just one dog. Or perhaps you currently do have just one dog and you're maybe weighing up whether you want to enter the multi-dog household era of your life. Either way, wherever you are at on that journey, this podcast episode is for you guys because we're going to just dive into all of it. So, with that in mind, let's start right at the very beginning for those of you who are at this point. Is a multi-dog household even actually right for you? Is it truly? Because it's not for everyone. And the honest truth is, sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes the answer is absolutely not. So let's start with when it actually is a good idea. And this sounds obvious, right? But it's if your current dog genuinely enjoys the company of other dogs. And I want the word genuinely to be doing all the heavy lifting in that sentence because I do not mean that they happen to tolerate 1 or 2 dogs that they know at the park really well. I mean, they have loose, wiggly body language with dogs. All dogs. They recover really well if something spooks them. They don't get overwhelmed in social situations. And they've shown they are comfortable coexisting with other dogs time after time after time. Tick all those boxes and you are starting on a very good footing. But remember, it's not just about what your dog can cope with, because this second dog is not going to be your dog's pet, it's going to be yours. So now that we've ticked the first box, we have to seriously question if you have the time, energy, and headspace for extra training, more management, separate activities, and double the attention. And whether you can meet both dogs' needs individually. That's really important because, oh, we'll just walk them together. It sounds efficient, it sounds really easy, but if one dog wants to sniff every blade of grass and the other one needs a 5K jog, you're going to end up trying to satisfy them both whilst actually satisfying neither of them and getting yourself really frustrated in the process. And I honestly can't tell you how many people I see with multiple dogs all out at once who, in the name of efficiency and getting the job done, have actually sacrificed control. They've sacrificed any kind of investment in manners or skill or regulation of their dogs. And to be real, they just don't look like they're having a great time either. Now, obviously, I do have more than one dog. I have a Labrador and a little poodle cross. Well, technically, the Labrador is a cross as well. I'm so used to calling her a Labrador because she looks just like a Labrador. Everybody thinks she's a Labrador, but she's actually part German Shepherd as well. But the point is, they are different ages, they have different needs, and all of that has to be taken into consideration when I think about designing our walks and our schedules and their days. I do walk them together if the walk is going to work for both of them. But there are also now walks that Albie goes on, that's my younger dog, the Poodle Cross, that Nova does not join us on because she is a lot older and wouldn't necessarily enjoy the things that he enjoys anymore. So, okay, with all of that in mind, let's talk about when it is not the best idea to add a second dog. So, if your current dog is fearful, reactive, resource guarding, clingy, or easily stressed, like they're kind of highly strung, adding another dog can make life harder for your first dog, not better. And that is because dogs do not fix each other. And I think it's so important for people to hear this. Your dog is not going to magically become more confident just because you brought home a happy-go-lucky Labrador who loves everyone. And again, bouncing back to you again, if your life is already stretched thin, like I'm doing my best not to burn the toast before school run thin, adding another dog truly multiplies the workload. It is not necessarily a 1 + 1 = 2 situation. Sometimes it really can escalate into a like we are now running a small emotional support daycare 24/7 on call stressful situation, right? And let's not forget about all the boring but definitely very important stuff like space, money, vet bills, insurance, food costs, training, time, puppy classes, all of that stuff. Multi-dog life really can be heaven. Of course it can. I live a multi-dog life. I chose that life. But it can also be total chaos. And the difference is honestly just whether you went in with your eyes open or not. So please, now, if you are still in the position where you're weighing it all up, be honest with yourself about the dog you already own. Are they truly going to enjoy a canine addition? Is their behavior, their skill set, their household manners, their behavior out on walks, out in the world, all of that stuff, is it where you want it to be? Or could it maybe use a bit more work? Because once you get a second dog, once that second dog comes home, you are only going to have less time to invest in working on that stuff with your first dog, not more. And you might also want to ask yourself, if I already have all of these struggles with my current dog, what is it that makes me think that the second dog is going to be any easier? or I'm going to have any greater success. Okay? That is said with love. Please believe me, but it's very important. Now, if you get past all of those hurdles, you come up against the next decision, which is choosing the right second, or God help you, third dog for you and your family. And let me be very clear here. The biggest mistake people make with this is just choosing a dog that is cute, choosing a dog that is convenient, simply going with the dog that is available, or choosing a dog that is very different because they just want to have something different, rather than choosing a dog that is compatible, when compatibility is actually everything, because energy level matters, right? If you've got a senior dog who moves like old honey and they're napping like 18, 20 hours a day, bringing home a high octane adolescent border collie is, let's say that's very ambitious. And both dogs will suffer from that kind of mismatch. Another thing that matters is play style, right? Because some dogs absolutely love wrestling. Some prefer running around and chasing. Some want something really gentle. Some go full WWE SmackDown. And if play styles clash, that kind of stuff doesn't really get better with time. It gets worse. I also think age gap matters more than people think it does. Having two puppies or two adolescents together sounds really cute. Sounds like it's going to work, right? Until they come together in perfect teamwork to destroy your sofa, to destroy your home, until separation anxiety hits all at once. Personally, from personal experience, like I find a gap like 2 to 6 years in ages between the dogs is often really optimal. Always. It's not ideal for everyone, but very often I find this works really well, okay? Because, your first dog, you've come through adolescence, they've got their manners in check, like you're right on top of them, you really understand their personality, and so then you're freed up, you've got more time if you want to bring a younger dog in to work on that dog. But your first dog isn't going to be so old that bringing a younger dog in is going to be, a real shock to the system. Okay. So, that said, let's look at the next bit, if you're still with me at this point, and that is transitioning from a single dog household into a multi-dog household. So, let's say you have chosen a good match and you are ready to move forward. Now comes the part that will make or break the dynamic potentially, and that is the transition. And most people can go way too fast with this bit because, to be frank, we just get really excited, don't we? We want them to be best friends immediately. We want all the cute photos, we want everything. But actually, this is a really big change for both dogs. So, first of all, your new dog, they need a little bit of decompression time. They need a breather. They have just come into a whole new world. They need time to just observe. They need to sniff around. They need to settle in. Your existing dog also needs time to adjust and to not feel like their whole life just got flipped upside down without warning. So, a great place to start, a nice little activity you can do when introducing any two dogs, is with parallel walking. Honestly, parallel walking, I recommend this to so many people, is magic. It's witchcraft. And it's just two dogs moving in the same direction. So, walking along side by side, absolutely no pressure to interact, just coexisting and slowly gathering information about each other, but in a totally pressure free way. It just removes all the pressure, all the potential tension from this social experience for both dogs. And it is such a gentle way to introduce two dogs to each other. And if this goes well, you can then move along to controlled greetings, short and sweet. You can use baby gates, pens, crates, visual barriers. Ideally, don't just throw them into like free roam and pray for the best, but set up an environment in which they can suss each other out, but there's still no pressure. And remember, management is your best friend. So feed them separately. Handle high value stuff really carefully, like, choose toys, food bowls, comfy beds. Give each dog their own little safe zone that's theirs. And this is really important because you are a resource as well. So prioritize one on one time. Your current dog needs to know they still matter just as much as they did before. And your new dog needs bonding time with you. That isn't being like supervised and guarded or interrupted by the resident dog. So, this kind of early structure, getting this set up, goes such a long way to prevent things like resentment, rivalry, insecurity, and the potential for fights down the line. Okay, right. So, let's now move on onto how we optimize this new situation if we've got to this point for long-term success, and look at the core training areas that I think you should be prioritizing in a multi-dog household. Because what most people do is they try to jump straight into training the dogs together way too soon. And then it very quickly just descends into total chaos. And then they panic and they think, well, now I have two dogs. Does this mean I just can't do training anymore? How the hell do I do this now? So if this is you, don't panic. You don't need to panic. I'm going to give you your list of priorities. These are the things you are going to teach your dogs individually so that everything else becomes so much easier down the line. Because ultimately, in a multi dog home, individual skills are everything, and each dog needs their own rock solid basics. So, here we go. First up is their name. And I know it sounds really obvious, but they must actually respond when you say their name. Okay. Next up, and this is the one I am forever repeating myself on in like Instagram comments or my video tutorials. This is really important. And that is a go to your mat, go to your place behavior, basically. This massively reduces chaos in countless everyday situations, as well as enabling you to engage your dogs in individual training games, like the kind of stuff that I am posting on social media all the time. You can engage them in all of these activities and these exercises effortlessly and fairly. And you're not having to shut dogs away and cause all the stress that that potentially brings. Then you need to work on a reliable recall. And really importantly, the ability to call one dog at a time. Now, if you already taught them an individual name response, you've got your golden ticket to success up your sleeve with this one already. Okay. Next, you're going to want a solid leave it and drop it, because multi-dog households have more triggers for conflict. And these cues are your diffusers for those situations. And another really important one is a calm settle, because arousal spreads between dogs like gossip in a WhatsApp group chat, right? And the more dogs you have in your house, the wilder a simple situation like the arrival of the Amazon guy can be if you have not grown the value of calmness. And then once each dog is brilliant individually, you can then train group behaviors. So group waits at the door, waiting at the open door, group recall, polite greetings so that they don't hype each other up into a frenzy when you have a visitor, cooperative care routines, even grooming, without the other dog crowding in to help or try and nudge their way in for some attention. And remember, this isn't just obedience for obedience sake. This isn't just about showing off or being clever. It's emotional regulation for the whole household, and it is so important. Okay, so that's your dog's emotionally regulated. Now let's talk about you for a second, because making sure you don't burn out is really important too. That checklist I've just given you might have made you actually feel really flipping overwhelmed. But remember, it's not a race. It's not about the finish line. You are here for the journey. You are here for the next decade of doing stuff with these dogs. So never put so much pressure on yourself that you feel like you're going to burn out, because there's no point. The honest truth about having a multi-dog household is different dogs will need different things, right? Some want big physical exercise. Some need sniff heavy, really slow paced decompression strolls. Some need a lot more mental work. Some need shorter, calmer outings. And maybe more of them, maybe less of them. And guess what? That's okay. That is all okay. If you are juggling needs that don't always correlate with one another, staggering activities is your best friend. One dog gets a run, one gets a sniffy mooch, one gets a training session, rotate. You do not need to walk all the dogs together all the time. You just don't. Solo outings also prevent over dependence on each other. So, dogs who can't function away from each other, these are the dogs that are going to struggle massively later on, especially if one dog ages or passes away or has to go to the vets or whatever it is. I think generally it's just really useful to approach it prioritizing in your head individuality first, group harmony second. Okay, that's your motto. Stick it on your fridge. Okay, so I've given you a whole load of instructions and tips there. Let's now talk about some of the big headaches that can pop up when you have got more than one dog in the house. And the good news is, most of them are totally preventable if you set up the right systems from the start. So, first up, common one, resource guarding. Now, before we kick this off, please understand, right, that this is a normal behavior for dogs. It's not a bad behavior. Dogs protecting their food or toys or beds or even your lap, right? That is just animal instinct. And you're not failing as an owner if this behavior crops up in one or more of your dogs. The key to success is really management and structure. So make sure that each dog has their own space for high value items. Feed them separately if you need to. I mean, I recommend feeding them separately, full stop, no matter how well they get along. And teach them that leaving things alone when asked is a positive, super rewarding choice. You don't need to punish them. You just need to prevent conflict and give them really clear, really consistent rules. My own dogs have never, ever, ever fought over food or treats or me or anything like that. But I have always fed them in separate rooms from day dot because it just makes sense. Everyone gets their own space. There's no need for guarding to ever become a behavior. And actually, right, my dogs have developed this beautiful little like synchronized swim approach to meal times now, where they both go off on either side of the baby gate to eat their dinner. And then they convene at the baby gate. They give each other the nod, and they both agree it's time. And then I open the gate and they seamlessly just swap rooms. There's no conflict. They know what they're doing. They swap rooms. They immediately investigate each other's bowls. They have a little sniff. They come back together. They agree. No one's missed out on anything here. There's no dinner time conspiracy afoot. And then it's off outside into the garden together. Job done. Okay, dinner time done. So, another common problem can be reactivity contagion. And I feel like all of you living with more than one dog already, you've got to be nodding along to this. Oh, yes. One dog barks at a passerby. Suddenly, the other dog, who's never done this before in their life, they're on it too. One dog freaks out at the doorbell. You've got your two dog alarm system totally engaged. And this is why, going back to an earlier point, teaching emotional regulation in your dogs is absolutely foundational, because if each dog can manage their own arousal and they can self-soothe, they're way less likely to drag the other dog into this spiral of madness. So prioritize it individually and you will reap the rewards when they're together. Okay. over arousal during playtime is another classic situation in multi-dog households. So multi-dog play is amazing, but too much excitement can sometimes lead to scuffles or accidental injuries, or one dog just feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the whole shebang. So if this affects your household, you just need to build in natural pauses and do a few little consent checks. So basically, this just means making sure that both dogs are still enjoying the game, and always have a way to call them out individually if you think things are getting too heated, or have a system with which you can separate them if you feel like one of your dogs needs a break and your other dog maybe isn't reading the memo. I have a baby gate in the doorway to my kitchen, and it's there to divide up dinner time, basically, like I said. But if I ever feel like Albie, my younger dog, is consistently trying to instigate play, and I can see that Nova, my older dog, would rather just have a nap, to be honest, I'll just separate them. Job done. Your dogs do not need to be joined at the hip. So management is your best friend. It's probably worth highlighting here also, because it's definitely becoming the case in our household now, that life also changes, right? Nothing is fixed. Dogs age, dynamics shift. When Albie first came home, Nova was very much a highly active, highly social dog. And as Albie's grown through adolescence and into adulthood, she's also grown from adulthood into old age. And so it's really important that you reassess things regularly. 2 years ago, for example, when Albie was a little baby, there was a lot of wrestling and frolicking going on in my house between these two dogs. But now I know that Nova doesn't want to engage in that as much as she used to. And so I ensure that I help advocate for her and provide plenty of space for her if I ever feel like it's required, which isn't really very often, to be honest. My dogs are really good at communicating and reading each other, but sometimes it is. Sometimes Albie can be a bit too much. Now, all of that said, I still do thoroughly enjoy living in a multi-dog household. We are really, really lucky that the two dogs we live with are both incredibly easygoing, and we don't really experience any of the flare-ups that can happen in multi-dog households. And for that, I am very, very grateful. But with that said, whenever Nova does decide that she is off to the big farmyard in the sky, I know for a fact that we won't be adding a second dog for the foreseeable. It's been such a long time since I've long term lived in a solo dog household, that there is a part of me that is keen to just embrace that reality whenever it hits, because Albie is still so young in the grand scheme of his life. He is plenty enough dog to be dealing with on his own, to be honest. And I feel so lucky that Nova has lived such a long and healthy and vibrant life so far. She's nearly 12. Actually, by the time this podcast episode comes to your ears, she will be 12. But she is still so active and so present at the moment. I think I'll just let life design itself however it's meant to be. I mean, she might be here for years yet. She really might. I don't know. I truly don't. But there does come a time with an elderly dog that you sort of find yourself having to slowly get a little bit more realistic about how the next few years might turn out. But who knows? Nobody really knows, do they? Anyway, God, right. It's nearly Christmas, for God's sake. We don't need to be talking about dogs departing us, Jesus Christ. Maybe that's a sign that I have waffled on for long enough today. Have I? Yes. Okay, gosh, we've done half an hour. Right. So to wrap up, multi-dog life can be absolutely magical. Genuinely, it's been my life for pretty much 12 years, and I've absolutely adored it. Watching your dogs enjoy each other, learn from each other, rest together, snuggle up, explore together, all of that stuff. Honestly, there is nothing quite like it. But big but. It really does require energy, intention, management training, and realistic expectations. And if you are currently on the struggle bus with it, flexibility is also required. Okay. Look at where your hotspots are for problems or flare ups and think about what changes you could make. Look at the problems that you think you seem to be struggling with on a daily basis and consider what trained behaviors might help eradicate or alleviate those problems. Nothing is ever fixed or stuck. You can always progress forward if you give it just a little bit of time, a little bit of thought, and a little bit of your energy. All right, my loves, that is our multi dog deep dive. If you found this helpful, please do share it with a friend who's maybe thinking of getting a second dog, or if you know someone who's already knee deep in the early chaos of having more than one dog, feel free to send it their way as well. And as always, I will be back same time next week for another episode of The Walk and Talk.